In this section today, I will address all the 12 sections in grant writing. So I'm going to give you a complete review of everything that is required to be included in a complete grant proposal. Now, every year, hundreds of millions of dollars are made available by development agencies, the World Bank, national governments, foundations, and corporate giving programs for disbursement for social intervention programs all over the world. Each year, data shows that less than 40% of these funds are actually assessed, and in some cases, about 50 to 60% of these funds are never assessed. The reason why most funds are not assessed has to do with the lack of information on how to assess these funds and the lack of skills in putting together proposals to assess these funds. In this lecture, I will walk you through the process of writing what we call a winning grant proposal. I will walk you through the 12 steps. Now, towards the end of the video, I will walk you through the process of assessing these international donor agencies and the techniques in getting funded. So it is important for you to follow the lectures to the end. You can also subscribe free to my YouTube channel, so you can also get my training videos as they come out. To get my previous training videos where I dwelt extensively on some of these topics, visit my YouTube channel and click on the subscribe to join button. For those of you who want to participate in more intensive detailed training on grant writing, visit my Telegram group by clicking on the Telegram link on my Facebook page. In today's lecture, I will walk you through the 12 steps of writing a successful grant proposal for funding. It will be brief and straight to the point. Step 1. The first step is to design your cover page. The page should include the complete detailed information of your organization, including the name, the address, and other contact details. Address the page to the recipient organization, including their complete details. On your cover page, include a statement regarding the grant that is being requested and the amount. Also on the cover page, including the name of the executive director of your company and the date the proposal is being submitted. This is step 1. Now, I will post a sample cover page on my Telegram chat room. Visit my Facebook page to join the Telegram chat room, so you can use the sample on my page as a sample for your own proposal. The next step is step 2, is what we call the proposal abstract. Some people call it executive summary, depending on the type of grant you're applying for. Now, even though this is the second thing you write in a proposal, in most cases it is what you write after everything has been written. In the executive summary, one of the most common misconceptions among grant seekers is that the proposals they have submitted are read in full by the committee or board that seeks the ultimate decision on grant requests. In most of the foundations, this is actually not true. What the committee or board receives and reads is a funding document written usually by lead program officer for the grant request. So the actual person that actually reads your proposal is a program officer who summarizes it. And the program officer decision on review, in most cases, that decision is made once they read your executive summary. At that point, they know if they are going to waste their time or if they should just shelve your proposal aside. So it is very important that your executive summary is well detailed and covers every aspect of the proposal. The funding document is typically a summary of the proposal received from the applicant, written in a standardized format that gives the committee or board essential information about the request and makes the case for appropriating funds for that request. Now, in my previous videos, I took out time to explain how to write abstracts or executive summaries. It is a section where you summarize the entire proposal. In most cases, once a reviewer reads the abstract, the decision is made whether to fund your project or not. I would advise you to take a view at my previous videos where I discussed writing introductions and executive summaries. Step 4 is what we call the introduction. At the introduction, what you're doing here is you're introducing your company. This is the first impression the reviewer gets about your company. In this section, as you introduce your company, you write all positive achievements about your company, including your past engagements and positive performances. You introduce your board, you talk about your mission, you talk about your vision and long-term goals. You have to be very brief. In previous videos, I took out time again and I gave examples of how to write introductions. Feel free to visit my YouTube channel and watch past videos for better understanding. Once you write the introduction, the next step, which is step 5, is the problem statement. The problem statement in some larger grants is what they call the needs analysis. In writing a problem statement, what you write is you define the problem. What is the problem? What are the causes of the problem? What are the long-term consequences if the problem is not resolved? What are available data to show that a problem exists? What are the gaps in successful, effective, and efficient delivery of programs, services, and needs in your community? What is lacking or missing, or the present shortcomings in delivery of services? By the time you cover this, you're almost done with writing your problem statement. You want to address things like what are the barriers to services and programs? What are the origins of this problem? How did it get to this point? What are the causes? How do I know this problem exists? What are the symptoms? What will happen is if nothing is done about this problem. So you outline the demography of the target population referenced in the problem statement. These are the things you cover in this section called problem statement. I have done extensive explanation on this in previous videos. I'm only capturing key points at this point to enable you catch up and flow as I try to move you to the next step. So finally, at the problem statement section, you discuss the capacity of your organization and how you think that based on your capacity, you can resolve the problem. In discussing the capacity of your organization, you have to show that the problem or the need matches the capacity. What this means is that if you're saying you plan to provide educational mentorship for 60 kids to write an examination, then you have to show proof of capacity. Your proof of capacity has to be that you have qualified teachers to handle the training. So you cannot say you want to do youth mentorship and your proof of capacity are medical doctors. No, your proof of capacity has to be people with training in what you're trying to do. Now, what resources do I already have? These are some of the things you want to also cover in the problem statement. You name your strength and your about your organization. And once you do this, you have covered the entire problem statement. You talk about the capacity of your organization, your board of directors, what they are bringing to the table. All these are captured in the problem statement. Once you complete drafting your problem statement, you move to the next section, step 6, which is goals and objectives. Now, listen carefully. The goal is a broad statement of what you plan to achieve. It is important that the goal is linked directly to the problem statement or the needs analysis of the program. I gave examples of goals and objectives in previous videos, so I will not give further examples in this section. Some writers actually combine goals and objectives, while some writers separate them. So when goals and objectives are combined in a grant proposal, we call it performance goals. They are often written with specific time and measurable goal achievements and performance measures. But for purposes of this training, I will separate both goals and objectives to enable you understand grant writing better. In a proposal, there are several goals. However, for each goal, you need to have objectives. On the other hand, this applies also to several other ways we write grants. We have two types of objectives. We have what we call outcome objectives. We also have what we call process objectives. In the last videos, I dwelt more on outcome objectives. I did not want to confuse you with process objectives, but briefly, in this section, I'm going to explain what are process objectives and the difference between a process objective and an outcome objective. Now, an outcome objective specifies the intended effect of the program or the end result of the program. It is measurable. That means it comes with specific timelines and numbers. The other type of objectives are what we call process objectives. A process objective deals with the development of some type of process of the proposal. So let me give you a short example. Let us assume that the goal of a program is to provide educational mentorship for WAEC and JAM examinations for kids within your community. So your goal is to provide mentorship. Now, how do you write the objectives? The outcome objective would say something like this. It will say, to provide educational classes for 50 students to prepare for JAM. At least 90% of all participating students will be fully prepared by the end of the training in December 2021. So outcome objectives comes with numbers. It tells you specifically what you will do. It tells you the specific number of participants. Those kind of objectives are called outcome objectives. Outcome objectives are mostly used when you're writing smaller grants. Then we have another type of objective called process objective. In process objective, to say the same thing I just said in outcome objective, in a process objective, you explain the process. So a process objective will sound this way. So a process objective will say to conduct a survey to determine how to improve students' grade in WAEC and JAM by organizing classes, hiring instructors to train youth for the examination. Process objectives, most cases, are not measured, but they tell you exactly what they plan to do. While outcome objective specifies time and result, process objective outlines a process to achieve the goal. Whichever route you take, it does not matter, but if it is in a smaller grant proposal you're writing, it is important to use outcome objectives. Outcome objectives helps you to also do what we call outcome evaluation. So if I get to the evaluation section, I will explain to you how it is connected. Step 7 is what we call program description. This is a section where you describe the entire program. This is where you answer the question, who, what, when, how, and where about the entire program. Who will do it? What will they be doing? When will they begin? How do they plan to do it? Where is it taking place? This is the opportunity you have to tell your story to the reviewer. This section begins with the purpose or goal of the grant proposal, followed by specific activities that will occur in the grant. You list the activities and explain the entire activity. The approach tells a story. It's like you're telling a story of what you plan to do in the course of the grant proposal. It discusses the activities in a chronological order. The approach flows well, linking each paragraph one to the other. Literature, you make reference to literature, and you also make reference to the authors and their dates and biography. You can do this at the appendix. So in the program description, you do a total description of the program. You tell the story of the program you're planning to do. This is where you have the liberty to explain everything in your mind, but just make sure you cover all the aspects. Who will do it? When will they be doing it? How will they do it? You explain all of that. Also, in the program description, you talk about the target population. You clearly describe your target population with the number of participants, the reason and the importance why they are selected. The program approach includes an advisory or planning committee. So let's say you have a board of directors. This is where you talk about their capacity and how they are going to be involved in the whole program that you're going to run. Or maybe you're planning to run your program with a management team. This is where you talk about the management team and their involvement. Or you plan to run your program with a curriculum. This is where you talk about the curriculum and how the curriculum will be used for the training. So in program description is where you're telling the reviewer everything you want to do. The writer tells each activity and how important they are. This is where if you have graphics, if you have community volunteers, if you have graphs, if you have chat, this is where it is displayed in the proposal. For each problem that is discussed, listen to this carefully. For each problem that is discussed in the problem statement, there is a corresponding strategy that has to be mentioned in the program description. Let me explain. So let's say from the problem statement, we started by saying that the problem is that there is high rate of failure in WAEC and JAMB among young people in our community. Now, when you come to program description, don't fail to understand that in defining the problem, you also talked about the causes of the problem. You said one of the causes of the problem was lack of after-school youth mentorship program. Another cause of the problem was lack of after-school classes in English and math. Another cause of the problem was poor parenting and counseling. And you also said part of the problem was after-school hunger due to poverty. These were the things you mentioned in the problem statement. When you come to this section 7 that deals with program description, each of the causes of the problem has to be addressed in full. This is the section where you explain. So when you talk about lack of after-school youth mentorship, you go ahead and explain why you think there is lack of after-school youth mentorship. So for each of these causes, you have to develop a program description answering who will do it, what will they be doing, when will they start it, how do they plan to do it, and where will the program take place. Once you complete all of these sections, then you have completed what we call the program description. It takes us to step 8. In step 8, this is where we talk about the timelines. Timelines reflect detailed, concise, chronological information on your program activities. What do you plan to do and when will it be done? Timelines appears to be realistic or can be accomplished within the time period that is stated. The time estimations are spread out over the project period and not bounce up in 1 month. So what you do is, let's say you want to run a program for 1 year. You come up with a timeline month by month. What will you do in January? What will you do in February? What will you do in March? Let me give you an example. So let's say you want to run a program and you want to give the reviewer the timeline. You can start to tell the reviewer that by the month of July, I plan to set up a planning committee that will look into the problems in our community. I plan to hire staff. I plan to rent a building. By the month of August, I plan to hire teachers. You understand? So you go through exactly what you plan to do every month. It is important you understand it this way. The timeline is a reflection of the objective, but again, it's a direct reflection of what we have in the line items in the budget. So we know that by July you plan to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have an idea of how much you plan to spend in July. By August you plan to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have an idea of what it will cost to execute things you want to do in August. So when you give an astronomical budget that does not align with your timelines, in most cases, your proposal is denied. So if you want to make sure your proposal is approved, your timelines has to match with your budget and has to reflect on your objectives. Once you address the issue of the timelines, which is section 8, it takes you to section 9. Section 9 is what we call program evaluation. In a nutshell, this is how you need to understand program evaluation. Somebody gives you $20,000 to do an after-school program. How will the person know that you actually executed these programs? That process is called evaluation. For some smaller grants, it is called expected outcomes. So evaluation is a very important component in a grant proposal. Only large grants require evaluation. Smaller grants, in place of evaluation, will have what we call expected outcome. What evaluation does is that it will analyze information to determine the extent to which the project goals and objectives have been achieved. The assessment will determine the level to which the program is effective in meeting the needs of the community. So if you say you plan to provide educational mentorship for 60 youths to write JAM, what evaluation does is that it is a report or model that determines how your results are actually measured. How would the reviewer know that you actually trained 60 youths if you are funded? What evidence do you have to show? So evaluation will capture a model of assessment and expected result, both short-term and long-term. Example would be statements like this. Let me give you a typical example of an evaluation. You can say all participating students are expected to register for training using their national identity cards, which can be verified. On each class session, participants will sign class attendance registers. All instructors will prepare lesson notes and submit as evidence that classes were held. Receipts of examination enrollment by the students will be provided, and final result sheets from JAM will be provided as evidence that the students sat for the examination. So technically, evaluation is more of a system that checks to ensure that you actually did the program and has measurable results that the reviewer can see. So you conclude by saying that it is expected that at least 95% of all 60 participant or participating students will pass JAM exams at the end of the program. This is what the reviewer wants to see. So we have several types of evaluation, just as we have several types of objectives. We have what we call process evaluation, and we have what we call outcome evaluation. Don't get carried away. Don't get confused with how I'm trying to explain these things. Just capture all the various segments. Go to my Telegram group. That is where I take my time to explain each section. Now, what are process objectives? Or no, what are process evaluation? Process evaluation is an internal necessity for the staff and planners to determine whether the project is being implemented as intended, while outcome evaluation measures the impact of the program on the population that is being served. So some types of evaluation would include what we call formative evaluation. We have what we call process evaluation. We have what we call outcome evaluation. We have what we call economic evaluation. We have impact evaluation. We have summative evaluation, and we have what we call goals-based evaluation. So the type of evaluation that is used in a grant proposal depends on the program. I will emphasize and explain this more on the Telegram chats group, how you choose the type of evaluation that can be adapted to a specific proposal. We also have several types of evaluation models. There are specific models that are used for educational programs. There are specific models that are used for homelessness programs. There are specific models that are used for a grant proposals on widows. There are specific models that are used for health. So it just depends what the reviewer is actually looking for. So the type of evaluation adopted in every proposal depends on the type of tools required in carrying out the measurement. I will dwell more on this in my Telegram group, where I will explain evaluation, because sometimes evaluation can be very tricky. And let me attempt to give you an example of an evaluation. To understand an evaluation, you need to understand that the evaluation is pulled out of the objective. So you state an objective and then you state what we call the performance indicator. So let me give you an example. So let's say an objective we say at least 60 youths will be identified to participate in JAM readiness classes in English, Maths, and General Studies between July 1, 2020 to September 2020. That is an objective. Now, how do I write the evaluation as a performance indicator? I can say an individualized educational plan will be developed for all 60 participating students, and this plan will include their strengths and weaknesses and the strategies to address their needs. The performance indicators will include the following. Listen. So performance indicators are the things I need to bring to the table to show that I actually conducted this training. So performance indicators will include confidential consumer files, students' identity cards. These files will document the method by which the students are experiencing the individualized educational plan. So I will also make a comment like at least 25% of all the plans will be reviewed and critiqued by an independent evaluator. And upon completion of the program, this is important in evaluation, at least 95% of all participating students will enroll and write JAM. We will also record at least 75% retention and university admission rate upon program completion. So somebody gave you $50,000 to make sure 60 young people are prepared for JAM. At the end of the day, you can show a result sheet to show that out of the 60 people I trained, 95% of them passed JAM and went into the university. Once you do that, you have completed, you have satisfied the reviewer that they gave you money and you use the money for the right courses. The biggest problem we have had when we are dealing with developing countries when it comes to evaluation is that sometimes they do not really have evaluation and they do not have a mechanism to put these things together, and it affects funding. How will the reviewer know that we gave you $50,000? Let's say the $50,000 is to last for 12 months. So the question is, after 12 months, what happens? If the $50,000 finishes, are you going to shut down your NGO or your nonprofit? The reviewer wants you to tell him your plan on how the program will be sustainable post-grant period. That comes in what we call Section 10, sustainability. So the key question the reviewer wants to know in this section is how you plan to sustain the program post-grant funding. Example, if you're given some money, how will you sustain the program after this? So in this section, you should be able to give the reviewer a specific plan of program sustainability. Let me give you an example. There's usually what we call the 8 strategies for sustainability. Things that you have to discuss when writing a sustainability plan. First, you produce a written plan. Second, you identify varied funding sources. Let the reviewer know about different funding sources that you plan to assess. Look for diverse funding methods. Take note, funding sources are different from funding methods. Develop short and long-term strategies. Focus on successful program activities. Form a sustainability team. Train the team and broadcast your success. So I'm going to give you a typical example how I would write the sustainability plan. So we have a well-defined plan to sustain the program beyond the grant period. This is what I'll tell the reviewer. This 3-year plan will begin from the first year of the grant program in 2020. On year 1 of the program, less than 75% of total funding will be grant dependent, 50% for year 2 and 25% for year 3. So the reviewer wants to know that, look, if grants are no more coming, your NGO will continue. There are things you can do to raise money. You can proceed by telling the reviewer that we have a promissory letter from our local church to match all our donated funds by 50 to 75%. This is expected to cover about 15% of our total budget. That's what they want to hear, that other organizations, other fundraising programs, that you have access on what you plan to do to raise funds. You can also tell the reviewer about your board of directors. You can say our board of directors have committed to hosting banquets and dinners to raise funds for the program 3 times every year. So you say see letters from the board of directors attached. You can also let them know that this will cover about 10% of the total funding. And you can also, sometimes you can talk about your partnership with radio stations to do fundraising. So you come up with different strategies. Once you can list 1, 2, 3, or 4 different strategies that you plan to use to sustain the program, in most cases, most reviewers want to give you money. So we have addressed the major sections of a grant proposal. The cover page, we spoke about the executive summary, the introduction, the goals and objectives, the problem statement, then the program description, program sustainability, program evaluation. We spoke about timelines. The last part of a proposal is what we call the budget. So the budget should include major sections, including salaries for the project director and staff, fringe benefit for staff, travel costs, conferences, office supplies, program supplies, equipment, and general logistics. So you explain all of these things in a budget. You make sure that the costs you're putting in the budget are reasonable. Sometimes hyping a cost unnecessarily can turn off a reviewer. So if, let's say, you need to take a flight from Lagos to Abuja, and everybody knows it's about 70,000 naira or 60,000 naira, and you put in there, like, let's say $400, a reviewer knows it's not $400. That alone is sufficient to just turn him off. So try to make sure that your budget is reasonable. So you state what it will cost to do for each item in the budget. One thing we try to do, especially in the developed economies, we try to make sure that you do not spend more than 25% of your total funding on capacity. That you do not spend more than 25% on salaries. So at least you can have up to 75% going into the program. So after the budget, the next thing you need to discuss then is what we call the budget analysis. So in budget analysis, you sit down and explain every line item, exactly what you did with the money. So let's say you say we are going to hire 6 staff at 120,000 naira a month. So you will say 6 staff multiplied by $120 a month multiplied by 12. So that gives you the total salary for 1 year. This is briefly how grants are written out. I have more time to discuss these things in the Telegram group. Sign up to the Telegram group. Now, where do you get this funding? There are several agencies, hundreds of thousands of agencies that do funding. There are several agencies that make funding specifically to Africa. I post most of this information on my Telegram group. And for those who are interested to use the American grant system, which is called grants.gov. It's a system you can access from Africa, and you can get heavily funded on programs ranging from HIV support, health support, tuberculosis support. There are programs that can help with funding for credit for women, to market women, several programs. So you can access this by visiting grants.gov. There are several other databases that you can access for funding. Visit my Telegram group. I post most of this on my Telegram group. It's nice talking to you today. I've tried my best to cover all the 12 sections of a successful winning grant writing proposal. Thank you, and God bless you all. I am Prince Will Odidi. Visit my Facebook page, visit my YouTube page, and subscribe. I'll talk to you some other time. Thank you and God bless you all. I am